найдутся, то такие же, как я, несчастных замучат. Им не на что больше надеяться. А я могу, понимаете, я могу им помочь. Никто им помочь не может, а я гнида могу. Я честно платить на том, что могу им помочь. В этом все. Ничего не хочу больше.
Welcome, everybody, back to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we look at one of the greats of cinema and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Eric Martindale.
I'm Austin Luger.
And once again, we will be Skyping. We're not going to make a habit of this, but for this episode, we'll be doing this. It is an impossibility to get together due to business. Isn't that right, Austin?
It's true. I'm in a different city.
You're in a different city. But still covering and continuing on our voyage and sort of putting a capstone on the end of this are Andrei Tarkovsky 5. The previous films we covered were Ivan's Childhood, Andrei Rublev, Solaris, The Mirror, and today we were talking about Stalker. Stalker, I believe, is a 1979 film. I don't have the rundown in front of me that I would typically have, which is sort of the capstone or ending to Tarkovsky's career, sort of as we know it. Sort of the final piece to the puzzle as far as his great films are concerned. He did make a couple movies after this. But this is sort of that big famous one other than Solaris that is almost always talked about, of course, along with Andrei Rublev as well. Stalker is the film about I don't want to say post-apocalyptic. It's not really that. It's almost kind of like a weird cyberpunk, but there's no cyber. It's really hard to discuss the actual era in this movie is, but we'll go with a post-apocalyptic society after the visit from sort of extraterrestrial beings that have settled in this area called the Zone. The Zone is an area that is surrounded by guards, and the people that lead people into the Zone are known as Stalkers. The reason why you would actually want to go to the Zone where the aliens had inhabited is because there is a room in the Zone that will give you whatever your deepest subconscious desire is, so people like to go to that zone. You see the main character in this movie, the Stalker, and that's what I'm going to refer to. I'm going to drop the names, refer to him as the Doctor, the Writer, and the Stalker. The Stalker in this film leads people in thinking he's basically doing a good deed to take people to this room for them to achieve what they want to achieve or get the goals that they want to go, goals that they want to achieve. I'm just repeating myself at this point. But basically, that's pretty much the plot of the film. The movie will take us through them breaking into the Zone, and it will take us through the Zone, and then it takes us to the room, and then it gives us sort of a denouement at the end to allow us to chew on it a little bit. Austin, what did you think of Stalker?
This was fascinating because it takes a while to know what the film is. Yes, there's information at the very beginning about kind of how the rules this world work, but while you're kind of outside of the zone and the film has a sepia tone to it, not accidentally like The Wizard of Oz, it's just kind of really hard to understand. And then once it's clear, once they're on this mission, once they are going towards the room, it becomes something really eerie and gripping and thought-provoking and fascinating and exciting. And I don't think I've used the word exciting yet in a Tarkovsky film, which is not a detriment to any of the previous ones, but this is it's funny because like when I kept thinking about Solaris during this movie, and once they're in the zone, now the film's in color, much like Wizard of Oz, you see kind of it looks different, and there's different kind of things going on. But whereas like something like Solaris, I felt that every set, even the outdoor ones, were something that like Tarkovsky crafted. The way that this movie felt like is that he just kind of like went outside and went, "This is our playground," and that kind of there's no lines on the ground kind of element to it. Actually made it creepier as you're going towards what could just typically be a normal field until someone says, this field can change on us, and if we don't stick closer together, it is easier for us to die. And it adds like a faith element to this journey as well, and the more dangerous it gets, the more you recognize how this is not just a simple road trip, and you see the desperation going towards these wishes, and it's it's great. It's a really great movie.
Yeah, it is. I guess that I should have made that point when I was giving the synopsis. Once you get to the zone, it's not a stroll through the park. The zone is full of tricks and traps, and basically nothing's what it seems, and you are in danger. And that's established from the very beginning. That's why you need a guide to lead you through it, not just through the blockade, but through the zone itself. When you talk about that sepia tone, what I think is kind of interesting about that is you do at the very beginning of this film for a while. I mean, probably close to an hour. You have, it may not be an hour, but it's a long time. You're in the pre-zone part of the movie, and it has this sort of filter on the film. And what's interesting about that is what is the sort of the life outside of the zone, which is an area full of traps and tricks, and a room that can fulfill your deepest, darkest desires. This is the real world, and yet the real world is presented with this filter on it. Yet the zone is presented like super bright and colorful in like beautiful landscapes, but there's always something tonally off about the each scene you inhabit in the zone, because you have like you'll just be walking through a field and like there'll be dismantled tanks there, and that's part of the set. And it's interesting because this area that they filmed in, there were dangers that existed with actual nuclear fallout. So, like, trying to avoid nuclear fallout, trying to avoid the traps and tricks in the zone. In fact, shortly after this, both the actor that played the writer, who was Andrei Rublev, who was in Solaris, died of cancer. I believe the DP died of cancer, and Andrei Tarkovsky died of cancer. So, all of which they linked to. I can't remember. It may have been the DP that actually said this. There was someone else related to the film that had died. Said it's absolutely because of where we shot Stalker. And that sort of art imitating life there, because they're in there. They're in the zone. It's a dangerous place to be. And I just couldn't help how poetically sort of tragic that is. I couldn't help but link those two things together.
Well, and that's the strange thing as well about their journey, because there's not a clear understanding at the beginning of why the writer or the professor or the doctor, however you want to call him, wants to go to the room. Exactly. There isn't some like obvious flashback scene of them going like, all I need is, loaves of bread for my family kind of thing. It is, you're watching them and they aren't like traditional adventure heroes. When they are in a scary situation, they don't want to go first down the tunnel. And so it's very strange where like there are times when this danger where I kind of almost want to keep screaming like, why are you doing this? And yet the film gives you that kind of wonderful contradiction where the sepia world is so bland and like nothing can grow from there. And even though we're now going to go to a literally radiation-filled landscape,
that's beautiful to look at.
It seems more promising.
Yeah, it really does. What I think sells this movie so much to me, and I love my favorite character in the movie is the writer, just because he has some of the rich dialogue. A lot of it in the film. A lot of it is his philosophies, and not unlike Andrei Rublev, as a bunch of men sit around discussing philosophy. But what really sells the film to me is how nervous the Stalker is the entire time.
Yeah.
He is scared to death of the zone. And that's why I take the zone so seriously. Because there are times when both the writer and the professor question the validity of the claims that this is actually a dangerous place. Because it appears so beautiful and whatnot. And yet the Stalker is taking everything they do so seriously. The actor does a fantastic job. And I've always looked at things kind of like, with a skeptical eye when people that are English speakers that not speaking the language of the film sort of judge acting. Because it can get a little muddled, lost in translation. But that guy is so good and so intense. He sells the zone just as much as anything else happening in the film. To me, anyway.
Well, it kind of goes with why this film should never have a $1 billion remake, right? I mean, you can make a CGI dangerous zone, but when you have a field or a tunnel or small sand dunes, which is
or water,
or just water, this actor is just like heartbreaking. It is kind of like acting against green screen, right? Like, he has no actual like catalyst to respond next to, but he's making it himself throughout his acting choices. And it's really effective because it is easy, we begin with the Stalker, it's just kind of easy to join in the mindset of the writer and the professor. And so the professor, says, "Oh, I forgot my bag." And the Stalker says, "Well, forget that bag."
Yeah, we're not going back for that bag.
Yeah, that bag is gone. Yeah. And the professor's like, yeah, all right. And then a few minutes later, he's like, "Where's the professor?" He goes, "I brought him back for the bag." And the guy's like, "Jesus, fuck."
Yeah, no, and that's in the reason why, like, having him be so good and so intense is so important is because we don't actually see any dangers in the zone.
Yeah, that is. At first, I actually really questioned that choice because, like, it could be a really like eerie thing to like go down one path and you look behind the shoulder and it's different, like those kind of tricks that we see in a lot of like haunted house films. But in fact,
it's in the anticipation, though.
Yeah,
that's kind of what like it's not so far removed from a horror genre. The movie itself, I mean, it's a cousin to it because there's a sense of dread that exists and it's heavy. And if you're not buying into that, then you're not going to like the movie. But it's sold so well. I mean, it ends up being snake oil for the most part because while we do see some strange things and some horrifying things are revealed to us, they're not getting shot at here.
No.
There's no Michael Myers hiding behind a corner. It's just this feeling of being unsafe that sort of exists the whole time. I found it gripping. I think it works this way. If it had anything else, I felt like if it used anything to try and artificially create that dread, it would have come off as cheap.
Well, it's the element of the unknown works so well with this because, I mean, typically I hate it when sci-fi tales just call someone, the Stalker, the writer, the king, whatnot. That said,
part of that's because they're Russian. That's why I'm doing that.
Sure, but
their archetypes that's the basis for each of their characters.
Sure, but like there's those like I think there may even be called that in the credits pretty much. But I mean that said, my favorite character in fiction is the Doctor, so I'm a complete hypocrite. But there's something works in this element just because it is so specific on how it wants to have people choose their destiny in that kind of way. So these are kind of self-named people in a way that doesn't feel as pretentious. And the idea of wanting to be called the writer or the professor and to do the things that they're going for is really, I don't know, it's so tricky because, I mean, once I finished this film, I texted you, "Oh, of course you loved this. This is a sci-fi Jaws."
Yeah,
because the element of these three men is just kind of remind me of the back half of Jaws, where it's these three men up against what they don't know, and they're going to risk everything for it. And you, much like Jaws, you see kind of who they are. So the lack of the official names is almost a red herring, and I don't know. It's so mixed on exactly like how they went. They're not heroes, but they're going on a heroic journey for a selfish reason. But one of them is not for a selfish reason. But then it's ultimately unsatisfying and satisfying, perhaps, or not. Or it's
it's
everything.
We'll
it's everything.
One thing that I thought was interesting, a thing that is interesting is that Tarkovsky uses one of his old tricks from Solaris in a big way. Do you remember which one it was?
Oh, the raining room?
Well, that's true too. But so we have in transition from what we have in Solaris, which is, you know, the Spaghetti Junction, all the roads, all the road traffic, him going through the traffic, and then boom, we're in space.
Yeah.
The way he goes to the zone here is these men on a rail car.
Yes. And
I swear it's like 10 minutes long. And there's no dialogue. They are riding on that rail car, and yet you're so ready for that curtain to be open to see what this zone is by that point that I thought that was used to even greater effect here. You had so much to reflect on, and this is borrowing from Ebert here when he says, you know, you get these moments in Tarkovsky films where you can go right or left. He gives you a long period of time without talking, sometimes without music, and it's something that appears mundane happening. And you could do one of two things. You can take door A and you could say, this is boring. Or you can take door B and say, this is awesome. It gives me an opportunity to, in my head, think of everything we've come to this point and why I might need to know that and why we might need to take a break before we move on from here. And I think that is done probably in this movie here, because there are other instances of this happening in film elsewhere, not just with Tarkovsky, but I feel like this is some of the best use of that I've seen. It's not pretentious. Something is happening. You're watching it. And I just think it's great.
Well, the cut to color when they enter the zone is a lot more jarring than Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz is a slow open of the door, and you saw the sepia house and the colorful world outside. Mm-hmm. This was so jarring, and you watch the men get out of the cart and kind of look around, and all I kept thinking was, what do they see? Like, did they see a sepia world? Or is this, like, what is the difference? What is that metaphor?
I think the metaphor is the exploring. Mm-hmm. What I mean is the world we know is the mundane, the controlled, the beige. The world we don't know is the greener pasture. It's the new world. It's alien. To not put too fine a point on it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I was just kind of
maybe that's simple. But that's kind of what I got from.
Oh, absolutely. I was just kind of wondering if it was only a metaphor to us, or if they saw different colors when
they literally see different colors.
Yeah, that's what I was, and that's kind of great because you still are not sure because they keep doubting the Stalker so long, and just in the nature of genre, we always tend to believe the person who has a better understanding of the rules of a genre. You never. But
they don't, though. They don't.
Oh, sure.
They grow more. I agree with you. As an audience member, I feel that way, and that's what I think. I mean, of course, there would have to be some dissent in the group to actually make the story or what's going on interesting. But the characters following the Stalker don't really. I kind of think he's full of shit sometimes, and that's of course because they have some ulterior motives. Mm-hmm. But which we'll get to in a bit. But I'm sorry, I jumped all over you. Hopefully you remember what you were talking about.
No, that goes with it all. It's just so fascinating because any other movie would, like, I just keep getting back to that incredible tunnel sequence, and just like they're already they go like, who should go first down this tunnel? Mm-hmm. And the Stalker's like, I think you should so much volunteer, and they go like, no, we're gonna draw matches kind of thing. And like there is no Indiana Jones in this group. There is hesitation and vulnerability to a point where it's odd, and that makes them feel unsatisfied in a way that I think is very important, because Indiana Jones doesn't really need the idol or the MacGuffin to make him feel more complete as a person. He's doing it for, reasons outside of character. These people just aren't happy.
Well, yeah. Well, the reason outside of character, I think, too, is just the matter of genre. I mean, Indiana Jones knows he's going to escape. Whether he realizes it or not, the audience member expects that Indiana Jones will live. These characters don't have the luxury of that. They feel very, very vulnerable. and you've spent so much time outside in the sunshine, and now you're going to take a walk down a long dark tunnel. Like, you've been waiting for something to jump out of the shadows. If that's going to happen, it's going to happen in the next 10 minutes.
I feel.
Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking, I feel that we've now been kind of avoiding the last hour of the film.
Sure.
And I think in the last 10 minutes of our podcast, we need to talk about how the journey ends.
So you have a character, a former stalker that we never see on film mentioned. His name's Porcupine. Porcupine used to be a stalker and would lead expeditions of people into the zone. Porcupine's brother had died, so he actually decides to go into the room himself. And then after he comes out of the room, he kills himself. And this is not, like, we don't really immediately put the pieces together on why he killed himself. The questions these characters are asking themselves, naturally the audience is going to ask themselves, if the room is something that fulfills all your desires, then why would Porcupine kill himself after he left the room? Mm-hmm. He also, we learned that he became filthy rich after he left the room. So he got riches, why kill himself? Well, the answer is, if you couldn't, put it together already, was that he went into the zone and went into the room thinking he wanted his brother back. He wanted his brother to live. When he came out of the room, he was rich beyond his wildest dreams. That was his deepest desire. His deepest desire wasn't to have his brother back. And because of that guilt, he kills himself. Did you put that together way before the room?
No.
I didn't either. It seems so obvious, of course.
Yeah. But
whenever you're just talking about it. But that reveal, that type of reveal, and I love that. I mean, it's like you're I'm going to grant you 3 wishes, but this is going to happen to you. This is done in a much more effective way. It literally just pits your own humanity against itself. And the room didn't do anything wrong. The room granted his desire to be rich.
It reminds me of a quote from Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka is perhaps the most quotable character whose quotes I love but disagree with the most.
Okay.
And one of those for me is near the very, very end of the film when he tells to Charlie, he says, do you know what happened to the man who got everything he wanted? And Charlie shakes his head and he goes, he lived happily ever after. And I'm like, I don't know about that. It's not the tale of a porcupine, for sure.
Well, no, it's not the tale of him. And, I mean, so that's what we learn about the room. So then you obviously have some, you have some feelings on the room at this point, which to me are pretty much... The room, I feel like, is doing this unconditionally, but basically it's also revealed right here, right before we're finally about to go in the room, that the reason why the doctor wanted to go back for that backpack is because he has a nuclear device in it, and he's going to blow the room to hell.
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming.
Nope. And that is, especially because he mentions earlier about how he wants to, win a Nobel Prize for discovering all the secrets of the zone. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, because I took it as kind of like a flippant comment at first, because he's doing no studies. He's just complaining most of the time.
Mm-hmm. My least favorite character of the 3, by the way. I don't know why.
Oh, well, he's an asshole.
He's an asshole. That's basically it. Yeah,
and
go ahead.
That's fine. But I mean, that reveal is the best scene in the movie for me, just because they get to this area and there's a phone and it rings, and that's so freaking creepy.
It's so amazing.
And
it's so a phone that's not connected to anything.
And so when it's answered and the writer just says, "This is not the clinic," I'm like, what the fuck is that shit? I had so many wrong theories at once that the writer was in on stuff that we didn't know, and it was so good and so creepy and so brilliant. And also during that sequence, I mean, this is the most Jaws moment, mm-hmm. Where you have these 3 men in this room. Well, not lowercase r. They're in a room.
They're in a room outside the room.
Yes, they're in the lobby, and you have them on the verge of all they've kind of been on the danger for, and they're still not sure if they can go through with all that they did. And the Stalker's breakdown of, like, I do this for, like, insecure people. I get nothing out of this. I get, like, I don't go into the room. I can never go into the room myself. And it's fascinating. It's the conversation they should have had at the bar in the beginning of the film.
Yes.
But you need to be there. It needs to be a real, tangible doorknob, I guess.
And I just love that idea. I mean, Tarkovsky is perhaps the best at making us sort of get introspective and think about who we really are. Not like who we want to appear like we are, and not who we tell ourselves we are, and not necessarily who we think we are, but who we really are. If I put you in this situation where you're standing outside a room that's going to fulfill your desire, it's not going to fulfill your wish. That's different. It's not fulfilling your wish. It's going to fulfill your deepest, darkest desire. Are you really going to step into that room?
Well, and
you're going to learn everything you've ever needed to know about yourself. And the weight of that may be more than we're capable of taking on.
And that's the great parallel with Solaris, because in that episode we had 2 weeks ago, we were debating the nature of that alien planet and what it was creating. And I kept describing it as a gift or a miracle. And you were more afraid of the repercussions.
I was afraid. Right.
And, I mean, to me, both of these things, these alien or godlike figures, are trying to be kind, because on paper, to be with the one you loved who is gone, or to have your greatest desire fulfilled, is a good thing, until you realize that perhaps you shouldn't have everything that you want.
Well, and also the zone is different, because the zone doesn't necessarily want you to enter the room.
Yeah, it's
you have to invade the zone to get to the room, whereas Solaris, I mean, under the threat of being completely irradiated, but they were trying to almost like establish contact, which is something I feel like there's more dissonance between the zone and the people here than Solaris and the people in Solaris.
Well, to bring this back to Indiana Jones, see, I didn't necessarily see the zone as an evil force. It just almost, to me, feels like the challenges in front of the Holy Grail. It's just to kind of get to those who are worthy. If they just had the room, downtown, maybe it shouldn't be used by everybody. Just be those who have earned this treat in the alien's mind. But it's not. It's seen as a horrifying journey that the Stalker hates to do, and he's the guy who does it.
There is were you going to add more there? Sorry, it's hard on Skype.
No worries. Because what's also jarring, I mean, it's a jarring way to get into the zone. It's even more jarring to leave the zone.
Yes, and here's where things get, I don't know.
Yes.
To me, Stalker is literally like a perfect film until this last 12 minutes. What? Okay. Do you want to summarize this?
Well, I'm going to stall by talking about it right before those 12 minutes.
Okay.
Because, I mean, ultimately, you have your decisions to not nuke the zone. You have these kind of moments of pain and, like, all this sucks. And then it's a really hard cut to back to Sepia, back to that bar. And I was thinking, like, wait, did they go in the zone? Did they, like, walk in the zone and get inside this bar?
Room?
The room, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I was, like, trying to think of all the repercussions, the possibilities, and then, of course, the answer is they went home. And
or maybe
perhaps, I mean the movie is open to anything.
Well, okay. So of course it's open to anything because of the weird ass ending. Like, and I'm sure there's some Tarkovsky fan out there that has their finger on the pulse on exactly what this is. But I've only seen the film once. I didn't rewatch it for this podcast. You've seen it twice, right, Austin?
I think I saw half of it back in college, and because I don't remember the second half at all.
Yeah.
So
like I said, I own it on Criterion. I did not rewatch it for this film. We were going to watch it again in the movie theater because they're playing at Gene Siskel, but we screwed that up. But the data. But yeah. We come back and basically, so the stalker has a daughter, which we met earlier. He has a wife too, and she delivers a monologue directly into the camera about like being married to him.
Yeah,
that's pretty bizarre. Because you're thinking like, I haven't seen this woman in an hour and a half. I don't really care too much about the stalker's like his life, his actual life. You know what I mean? Like his marriage, his spouse.
I liked that element because at that point I was really into the stalker as a person once he was in the lobby, as we call it.
Me too. But if you're adding nuance to that, I like him as the stalker. I don't like him as Bob the stalker.
But he is someone who is choosing to keep risking his life for a task he's not comfortable with. And to have a family as well, I thought made him... Like, I was actually all for, like, yeah, let's get into the home life of this guy because he is volunteering to do this.
Okay, so fine. She delivers the monologue, and it's acted beautifully. It's shot beautifully. Everything happening is very, very pretty. He brought a dog back from the zone there, and now the dog's part of the family. But at the end of this film, and seriously, humongous spoiler warning if you haven't seen the film, I really, if there's one thing you shouldn't know going in, it's probably this. So it cuts to his daughter, who they call Monkey, and she moves a glass with her mind off the table?
Yeah.
What was that?
I don't know.
You don't know, do you?
No.
You don't know. Why did that happen? What was that? So, like, my theory, and literally the only theory I can come up with is that, well, I guess I have two, kind of. One, going to the zone, like the magic of the zone rubbed off on him in some ways. I actually have three theories. Another one is he took her into the zone at some point and she went into the room and somehow that's her power. Or he went into the room and somehow that's related to what his big desire is. But other than that, I got nothing. Well, it seems like a weird thing to end in the movie. Like, people love this. People love this part of the movie. And it being the ending, I'm hesitant to call it a twist because I don't know how it relates to the plot.
Well, I don't know. And I'm just looking now online, and it says that there is no, because it's based on a novel, and I'm not fully sure that the ending of this movie is in the novel.
Right, the novel's Roadside Picnic. Stalker is a better title than Roadside Picnic.
But something a theory I had just while talking is the possibility of perhaps, this doesn't really work with the story of Porcupine, is perhaps like once you enter the room, you don't remember going in the room, perhaps? And perhaps the wife did go in the room and they got a daughter, because maybe they couldn't have a daughter. And the daughter is a product of the room. Or perhaps the stalker went into the room and got this daughter.
Gotcha.
Like, to me, maybe like the fact that the daughter is
and she's very weird.
She's very weird. Of course. Yeah. The idea that the daughter is from the room is my only idea right now.
Yeah, I mean,
because he's
almost
really insistent, because it's actually kind of crazy, this part of the movie, well, besides that part, because like he comes back and says, you know, fuck, that was terrible, can't believe I did that journey again, I hate my job, this is awful, this is really terrible. And then the wife goes, I think I should go to the room. And I just like laughed, going, what? No. He just hates his job so much. Like, he's the one to take you.
Well, and, I mean, it's go ahead.
But it's just that element, and it's just, I mean, then she performs the really fascinating monologue, but I don't know, it's a
weird way to end this movie. I mean, it's a bizarre movie, of course, but this is adding something else. It's another supernatural element. It feels a bit crowded. I don't know how it relates to the previous 3 hours I just watched. Like, I just don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's someone out there that does and can present to me an unbelievably, incredibly sound theory for what it is. I'm fine with not knowing. Like I said, I still think it's a great movie. I think it's. I'm understating that. I think it's a masterpiece. I love this movie. But yeah, I don't know if I'll ever know what that was about.
Well, that's the curious thing, because I mean, last week we found ourselves we went up against the film and the film beat us. It felt like with the mirror. But we never disliked the movie, and this wasn't a case where like it was a shitty Shyamalan ending where we're like, wow, fuck this. Where people who hate the Lost finale decided to hate the
entire series.
Yeah. But this wasn't like that. This just kind of felt like this fits in the world that I've seen. This is a world that I would love to see explored further. I don't know if by a film. I would hate to be stuck with the burden of making a sequel to Stalker, but like it's a really rich mythology going on.
I think you could though. I think you could make a sequel to Stalker.
I don't want to.
I don't want to either. They throw way too much money into it. But yeah. I just it's you're right. I mean, there's so much to the lore here. There's so much to this world. There's so much going on that you're fascinated by the mundane. I mean, we didn't even talk about how unbelievably action-packed the first part is when they break into the zone. Yeah. I mean, like there's so much going on in this crazy-ass world. Like, when the Stalker and them are on that Jeep and they're, like, driving across the train tracks where they're getting shot at and shit, that's really impressive filmmaking.
Absolutely.
Because they don't have the advantage of CGI and a budget.
Yeah.
Just incredible stuff you're looking at. Everything is so awesome and so succinct. I'm just sort of surprised. I'm just surprised by that ending is all. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm sure it'll be explained in Stalker 2049, starring Ryan Gosling.
Dude, I just watched Blade Runner I want to say the first time, but the first time in a long time the other night. Phew, that is not a very good movie.
It's not.
Anyway, sorry.
For all you who stuck to the end of the Stalker episode, here's our controversial opinion that Blade Runner's not that good.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly inventive and appreciate all it did, but phew. Never mind. We're not going to talk about Blade Runner.
We actually never will in this podcast.
Yeah, maybe in the Harrison Ford 5.
No, probably not.
No, because we're probably talking about Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, you want to take us out of here?
All right. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Stalker. If you've not seen the film, weird choice you just made, but it is available on Filmstruck, I believe, and on the Criterion Collection. We definitely recommend you check it out. And also, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie, especially if you have theories on that final scene. You can go over to theartimmortal.com and leave a comment on this thread. While you're there, you can check out the other podcasts that we have there, including The Immortals, which yesterday, and you can tell why this was on my mind, we reviewed Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and the miniseries Pride and Prejudice, which I had not seen before. It was pretty good. And also you can check out Ad Absurdum, which has a new episode coming out, I believe, this weekend, all about Inception. I'm very excited to hear. And we'll be back on Wednesday, where we're going to look back at the Andrei Tarkovsky 5, what we covered, what we didn't, and we'll announce our next 5 as well. So stay tuned to that. And Eric, where can we find you?
You can find me at Constant Diversion. That's my YouTube channel. Check me out on there. And one little funny nugget here, unrelated to that. We have these little libraries on the block. You know, people put books in and people exchange them. They're like little, think of like a lemonade stand, but it's just books in a covered thing.
Oh, okay.
And Meg and I walked over to it the other day, and Stalker was in there on DVD.
Really?
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. All I can figure is they just bought the Blu-ray, so they put the DVD in there. But it's the weirdest thing, because I wasn't even sure that came out on Blu-ray, and just a really crazy coincidence. So a cute little nugget at the end of the episode for people who are still listening to us sell our ads.
We should just give away our bank account numbers right now.
Yeah, exactly. No one's listening.
It's just us now. You're all here. Because you have to know where to find Adam Lord's music, and it's songsbyalord.com. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. I don't know when to shut up.
It is now. So thank you all for listening, everybody. My name is Austin Luger.
My name's Eric Martindale.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.